Hello everyone, and welcome to the Queue Overview lecture. So we've learned about stacks and we've implemented our own stack class, so let's go ahead and now learn about queues. So as I mentioned, we'll get an overview of what queue is in this lecture, and in the next lecture we're going to implement our own queue class. So a queue is an ordered collection of items where the addition of new items happens at one end, called the rear, and the removal of existing items occurs at the other end, which is called the front. As an element enters the queue, it starts at the rear and makes its way towards the front, waiting until that time when it is the next element to be removed. So, the most recently added item in the queue must wait at the end of the collection. The item that has been in the collection the longest is at the front. So this ordering principle is sometimes called first in, first out, or FIFO, FIFO, or FIFO, depending how you want to pronounce it. It's also known sometimes as first come, first served. So the simplest example of a queue is the typical line that we all participate from time to time. So we can wait in line for a movie or a checkout line at a grocery store or a cafeteria. The first person in that line is also the first person to get serviced or helped. So that's the parallel and why the naming scheme is queue in this case. So first in is first out. So, for example, in this figure, we have two new terms here, NQ or on queue, and then DQ or they queue, depending how you pronounce it. So we have the back and the front of the queue. So, on queue term describes when we add a new item to that rear of the queue, and the DQ term describes removing the front item from the queue. So when we're thinking about how this relates to the push and pop methods that we saw in that stack implementation, in this case, as we push items into the queue, they're the first in. But as we pop them out, those first in items are also the first to come out. So you can see how this is different than a stack. So remember, stack was last in, first out. In this case, we're first in, first out. So keep that in mind. So you should now have a basic understanding of what a queue is and that first in, first out principle for them. In the next lecture, we're going to actually implement our own queue class. Okay, so go ahead and review this lecture in case anything was unclear to you. There's also a Jupyter notebook that goes along with this lecture, so you can check it out as well. And you can check out the resource for the PowerPoint that we went over in this lecture. All right, thanks everyone, and I'll see you at the next lecture where we're going to implement our own queue class.